rolling. Stand by.
My name is Jim McGuire. Welcome to our show tonight. I'm your host, and tonight we have a very important show. We're going to be talking about bullying. That's a very serious subject in our country and in our county today. Oftentimes you'll look at a TV show or during the week and you'll see where a couple of boys and girls were pushed to the very end, to their limit, and they wind up taking their lives. That's a terrible thing to happen to anybody. So tonight we have a great panel with us who's going to talk about bullying and how we can maybe stop it or how we can try to improve in that particular area. So I just want to mention who they are tonight. We have Adam Levy, District Attorney from Putnam County. Adam's here tonight. We have Valerie Nerman, who is a social worker in Putnam County.
I actually am a health teacher and the
Health teacher, right.
For the Mayapack School.
Very good.
Yep.
We have Joe DeMazzo, who is the Director of Youth Services in Putnam County. Thank you, Joe. And we have Valerie Trifney, and she's a actual social worker with the schools in Mayapack, right?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. So if you could just go around and maybe introduce yourselves and say something about the job you have, and why is this such an important subject? Want to start with you, Adam?
Sure. Thank you, Jim. As district attorney, our responsibility is to prosecute criminal conduct committed by those individuals who are 16 years or older within Putnam County. Several years ago we started an initiative with the people on the panel to address these issues on a more public, bullying issues on a more public scale. We've had some great success. Our goal as it pertains to bullying is to change the culture slowly. We don't expect any time in the very near future for people's views on bullying to change. But like we addressed issues of domestic violence and drunk driving, over time, we do expect the way people view bullying and the impact that it has, the negative impact that it has on our youth to change. And so we hope that by working with parents, with law enforcement, with school coordinators, administrators, teachers, and most certainly the parents, we can change this culture, because it's no longer boys will be boys or girls will be girls. As you indicated before, the worst case scenarios is when children are pushed to their limits and take their own lives. But more often than not, as a result of repeated bullying, what we see are children who miss class, they suffer anxiety, they have an inability to complete their work, and most importantly, when the bullying goes on either in school or out of school, and it spills over into the school environment, it creates a toxic environment in the school, and it makes it impossible for kids to learn. So we've taken the initiative in our office to get the word out to the public, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Oh, thank you. Valerie, would you want to say something about your job and why is it so important?
Well, sure. I mean, as a health teacher in the schools, and I can speak for all of the health teachers that we have in Mayapack, our goal is to help kids make good choices, and our goal is to support them in achieving academically. And we know that when kids feel safe in school, then they are more likely to learn and they're more likely to achieve. They're more likely, as Adam just said, to attend school in the first place. And kids who are being bullied are more likely to miss school. They're, as Adam said, suffering anxiety and physical problems directly related to bullying. So in our schools, we implement programs to try to address the bullies. We try to address the bystanders. We try to address the victims. Our main goal is prevention, and if we can prevent, you know, that whole saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We truly believe that, and we do believe that health education can be effective for the students and for the parents.
Thank you. Joe, do you have something to say about this?
Just briefly, because I think Adam and Valerie have done a great job in expressing what all of us on the panel feel. I believe that bullying is a systemic issue. It's a cultural issue that we need to change that culture of bullying that goes on in society. And a lot of times it's a misunderstanding between kids that escalates, or through parents who are trying to support their child, and sometimes they support them in a negative fashion without even realizing it. So I think today's important because we will give some information to children and parents to help them identify behaviors, positive and negative, that they might be involved with. The other thing from our perspective at the Youth Bureau and Mental Health Services is that potentially bullying at a young age has some impact on future behaviors, including alcohol and substance abuse. Risky behaviors are risky behaviors. And so if we can do some prevention with bullying, that down the road we might be able to prevent some alcohol and substance abuse issues.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Valerie, how about you and your job, and why is it so important?
As a social worker, my job is to support students who are bullies, who have been bullied, who have witnessed the bullying, to support all students in helping them develop better coping skills, so they don't end up, engaging in risky behaviors. Like D.A. Levy was talking about, students' work is affected and their school performance is affected. So part of my job is to help students talk about it, process it, develop healthy coping skills, and then linking kids up with the services that Mr. DiMarzo provides in the county. It's really a partnership, the way we work, and that's a big part of my job as a social worker, is to know where to send the students who need help and how to help them appropriately.
Oh, very good, thank you. I just would like to know, what would be a definition of bullying? Joe, would you like to say
Sure.
something?
We've written it down because what we feel is important is that the community and that all of us use the same language. And bullying is generally defined as a repeated physical, verbal, sexual, or psychological attack or intimidation by one individual who is perceived to be stronger, whether physically or psychologically, than someone else. Students usually are bullied or victimized when he or she feels exposed repeatedly over time to negative actions on the part of one or a whole bunch of other people. The important piece here is that it's repeatedly. And we need to make sure that parents and children understand that isolated incidents not necessarily are bullying. We shouldn't say that that incident isn't important, but we should not make an isolated incident a bullying issue. It needs to be repeated over time. And we also need to identify where it takes place and in context. Bullying in a hallway is probably real bullying, and other people are involved. If it takes place on an athletic field where an interaction during a football game, that necessarily isn't bullying, excuse me. That is just physical contact. And so we really need to make sure that we define it and that we identify it. But we should never downplay any incident that a child feels they are bullying. We should talk about it and investigate it.
And I think what's really important about that, Joe, what you said is that we don't want to ignore it. So if parents have a concern, they should reach out. They should call the school. They should let us know what's going on, because more often than not, parents wait too long, and then things escalate, and it's to a point where damage has been done. So it's fine to call and talk to a counselor, a social worker, a psychologist, an administrator. There are people there to help parents. So we need to know.
Right, very good. What would you say are some reasons why people bully? Would anyone like to just say something? What do you think a person bullies another for? Is it their family they come from? Valerie?
Well, I think that there are a number of reasons that the research has shown why people bully. And one of the reasons, speaking of families, is that some young people bully because it's what they see at home. It's the environment that they grow up in. Homes where people are angry a lot, yell a lot, where there's an imbalance of power between parents perhaps. They see it and they just emulate it at school. Some young people like to dominate others. They like to be in control and be in charge. Some young people feel that if they bully, it will gain them more power, more popularity. It will make them feel more important. So there are just so many different reasons why a young person might bully. And as Val was saying, I think that the bullies are important people as well, and we need to help provide support and help for them as well. I think that the statistics showing they're more likely to become involved in criminal activity. I know that Adam can speak to, and as Joe mentioned, they're more likely to become involved in destructive decisions later on in life. Is just an important reason for us to address their needs as well as the victims and the bystanders.
You know, Jim, I
Yes,
want to
Jim.
just add to that briefly, is that a lot of time bullies are insecure, and that it's their way of building up their own self-esteem, but they don't realize it's being done in a negative fashion. They also do it because they want attention, and oftentimes they're not in the spotlight, whether it's at home or whether it's amongst their peers or whatever activities they're involved with, and some of them are not involved in activities. And to a lot of young people, negative attention is better than no attention. And so bullying becomes the way of them getting people to look at their behaviors. And they misread that as looking at their behaviors as looking at them and giving them self-credibility. And so sometimes it's an ego, it's a being an insecure issue for children.
Adam, what do you think about some of the reasons?
I agree with everything that Valerie and Joe has said. I believe it has a lot to do with low self-esteem. You know, we can all think back to the times that we were in school and the kids who were the bullies in our schools. You know, I think if there's one common thread with all of them is probably not only perhaps larger in stature and size than others, but also a relatively low self-esteem and trying to gain power over people who were less able to protect themselves. Statistic from the National Youth Violence Prevention Center suggests that 60% of bullies will have a criminal record by the age of 24.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
And it's one of the reasons why we got so involved in the DA's office in Putnam County with our program, which is bullying prevention equals crime prevention. And we say to parents, listen, schools are not responsible to take the lead. It's the parents of the children, parents of the bullies, the parents of the bystanders, the parents of the victims. It's their responsibilities to get involved and to teach their children right from wrong. Make sure there are consequences for inappropriate behavior. And my response to the parents is, you know, when your child turns 16 and there's a history of bullying behavior in the elementary school, in the middle school, and now they come to high school, and their behavior has not been checked by you as the parent, help from a social worker or a counselor has not been sought, don't complain to me as district attorney when something happens and we now prosecute your 16-year-old or your 17-year-old for assault, for menacing, for aggravated harassment, for stalking, for assault, because we do. We had a case not too long ago in one of our local high schools, a 17-year-old who, after a series of cyberbullying by using one of the social websites that I know we'll talk about in a little while, posted a comment that he was going to take care of business when he got to school the next morning. And sure enough, when he got to school the next morning, ended up viciously assaulting another student with a weapon, with a sock, 2 locks, padlocks that were in the sock, and he beat the student about the head, face, and body. That 17-year-old, jail, felony record, future gone. The likelihood of that person, of that 17-year-old, getting a job, having a successful career, destroyed. Yeah. I had no issue with that. And my office had no issue with that because there were signs that were disregarded. So again, it doesn't mean that children who come from good families don't make mistakes. They most certainly do. But I think that instead of so many parents, and again, I have 3 children myself, 14, 12, and 7, we'd like to think that it's the school's responsibility to take the lead. It's not. It's a parent's responsibility, and that's what we're hoping for. Parents listening today, tonight, get the word out. You have to help protect your own children.
Right. Valerie, what do you think? Are there any reasons that you think they're bullies, people?
I think that, you know, everything has been covered.
Okay.
I really do. Yeah.
Very good. Now, I was wondering, where does bullying occur the most? In middle schools, elementary schools, high schools, colleges? What do you think, Val?
It occurs, I mean, across all grade levels. I mean, even as adults, we can probably think of times right now, you know, in our lives where we face bullying. But statistically, we're seeing that middle schoolers are the most at risk, students between the 6th and 8th grade. It is just a vulnerable time for them developmentally. They're going through so many changes. And not only are they at greatest risk probably for dealing with this issue, but this is the time where bullying is going to affect them the most, where their feelings about themselves are emerging and their identity and all of that kind of stuff is going on. So this is bullying in middle school is probably especially traumatic, although it's traumatic at any age.
Well, that's amazing. I was going to say, you know, I recently saw a show on Channel 13 about bullying. It was educational television, and it was all different people. There was a policeman on, there was social workers, it was all different, and there was a reverend. And I remember what he said. He said, you know, too bad people wouldn't realize that the scripture, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall see God. Yeah. Too bad that message wouldn't be given to these young kids in school. Instead of everything is to be a tough person and to be angry and to hurt people, instead of being a peacemaker, to include the outsider, you know, someone who's not popular, into the fold and help them, you know, have fun in life. I don't understand why they don't understand that, the kids today, you know.
You know, Jim, I think that's a great point, because one of the things that we talk to kids and parents about when we're doing bullying prevention is that if you see a child who's being bullied, it's okay to go over and help them up with their books, or to go over and put your arm around the child and say, you know, come with me. And maybe take the child and show support to them. You don't have to defend another child physically. You don't even need to engage in the verbal altercation on behalf of the child, but just to show them support. Show them that someone cares about them, and that one of the things that we want parents and kids to know, it's okay to do that. It's okay to support another child who's being taken advantage of. That shows character.
Yes.
And there's a difference. And there's a difference between tattling and reporting.
Yes.
Right.
So while we would never suggest that a bystander who sees another student, say at school or on the playground or outside, getting taunted, teased, we don't expect a physical confrontation, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with, and any bystander should be supported to report what they see to someone in authority, whether it be a teacher, a school resource officer, a parent. Let them know. Understand, it's not tattling when what you're doing is helping to protect someone else. And then it's with that support that we'll have bystanders getting involved and assisting responsible adults to stop that irresponsible and illegal behavior.
You know, one of the things, I'm sorry, because I have really good definitions that I want our audience to hear. You know, when we talk about snitching, that's telling on someone to cause a bigger problem than there is. Reporting is because the problem is bigger than you. And so kids need to change their mindset of thinking that I'm snitching. No, you're not. Snitching is if you want to get someone in trouble. Reporting is you want to help somebody.
Right. And you know kids that come to my office who are worried about reporting are always talking about the repercussions. You know, they don't trust that the adults know how to handle it and are savvy enough to handle it without exposing the reporter. So, you know, a lot of my work is done with students to say, you know, we know how to handle this. Let me tell you how we're going to do it. Your name's not even going to come up. You know, we'll